no, jokes aside, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Please give a warm welcome to Overwatch lead hero designer, Geoff Goodman. Jeff, how are you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks.
We're doing great. Do you like our rework?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Big
it.
fan of the hat to wear.
Great. You don't even need him. It doesn't even look that sunny
what we
out there
thought.
anymore.
It really doesn't. It's still warm, though. It's still warm. You wouldn't like it. You wouldn't like it.
I'm just in my room
Don't come
here.
out here.
I'm jealous.
Now, Jeff, let's start with a really easy question for you. When's the release date? No, I'm just kidding. I had to shoot my shot, though. But seriously, what can you tell us about how the game is coming along so far?
Oh, it's coming along great. I mean, we're doing just constant playtests all the time and finding new things we want to try, and a lot of things that aren't working, a lot of things that are working, sort of surprising us. So I think we're sort of in this world now where we're still sort of experimenting with a lot of big things, like, you know, just as an experiment, we're gonna try Doomfist as a tank and stuff like that. I don't know if that'll work. It probably won't work, but you know,
Why not?
we're just
I like the
trying
sound of
stuff.
that.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Jeff. Why don't we let's just give the people what they want. I think the first thing that we'll be looking at is the new Sombra rework. Anything you want to say to set this up?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of this is, we've talked about this a little bit before, but we have this sort of goal we're going for right now to try to sort of reduce crowd control effects throughout the game, and the way we're sort of targeting that is kind of leaving it on tanks. It's kind of like a big thing that they get to do, and it's like their big role, among other things they do, of course. But so what it really comes down to is we're looking at all the non-tanks and figuring out, what kind of crowd control is really necessary. What do we think we can get away with? What feels kind of fair and what feels kind of unfair. I know that's a little hand wavy, but everyone has their own opinion on that, I'm sure. But so for right now, for example, Ana still has her sleep dart. We kind of feel like that's pretty fair. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out that people don't like that. I don't know. I think most people think it's pretty cool. But as part of these changes,
Don't touch my
Sombra.
Don't touch my Hannah.
But as part of these changes, Sombra is definitely a big target because it's like she's all about crowd control in some sense. So that's where a lot of this rework comes from. So the first thing is really just like how to reduce her sort of disabling effects while still keeping her really strong. So I think that's a decent lead, and I think it kind of explains.
Ooh. So
Well, we
exciting.
like
All
the
right.
sound
So
of
excited.
that. Let's just dive straight in and take a look at the Sombra rework.
Yes, please.
For Sombra's rework, we have some really important changes that can dramatically affect the way she's played.
Overall, we are reducing her CC abilities in line with larger changes to Overwatch 2 and giving her more potential damage.
Let's start with changes to her hack ability. First, we significantly reduced the cooldown. Secondly, her hack now lasts 8 seconds, but now has 2 components to it. The first component of the ability works exactly like it does in Overwatch 1, disabling abilities. However, that effect now has been reduced to 1 second. The second component of hack is a brand new effect that reveals hack targets to Sombra and her team through walls, and it lasts the entire duration of the hack. In addition to that, her passive has gained the ability to do 50% more damage to hacked targets. For her ultimate ability, we tweaked it so it no longer removes all shields, but instead, it now just deals damage to enemies equal to 40% of their current health. Combined with her new passive effect, this gives her even more finishing potential.
Lastly, an update that really leans into her character is that you can now hack while being in stealth mode. You are briefly revealed when hacking, but it no longer removes stealth completely.
See you later.
Wow.
Wow, indeed.
Wow. Big fan of that.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, I had to squeal there. Yeah.
I mean,
But-
I'm a main tank player, straight off the bat. Everyone knows this.
That looks so fun, though.
EMPs and hacks is a big part of my Overwatch life. Now, hopefully not as much anymore. So, I mean, you mentioned it going into the video, of course. You've been taking an approach, talking about these different crowd control effects, whether it's May's freeze ability and in this case, Sombra's hack ability. What was your thinking when it came to hacks from Sombra? How did you approach this ability, and what did you decide to change it?
Yeah, so it was pretty tricky because she's so tied to this crowd control effect. So we wanted to, but we didn't want to take the hack away from her because she's a hacker. That doesn't make any sense. So we want to still be core to how she works and how she plays. So we started looking at other effects and what could we do that is impactful but isn't quite as brutal as just locking somebody out of their abilities for so long. We actually tried a version for a while where she just couldn't disable abilities at all. But there's some cool moments where you get to sort of counter like a fair ult that you see in the video or something if you're there at the right time or you're waiting for it at the right time. So we ended up keeping it in for just a short period of time, much shorter than usual. It's almost more of an interrupt than actually setting somebody up for a long duration thing. Yeah. But we let the hack last a little longer, and then most importantly, she gets to do a ton more damage when she against hacked targets. So it's really this play when you're playing against her where she can hack while she's stealth. So your backline starts to get hacked. It's almost like a flag drop. Like I'm about to come at this person. It's like a warning to everybody that and it's almost like a disadvantage for her in a way. Yeah, exactly. Where she has to essentially call her targets before she gets to do big damage to them. So. But on the flip side, she gets to do way more damage than she has done before. So.
I'm a big fan of that. I do think there's a really good place for Sombra in Overwatch, and I like these changes as well. The ability to mark targets essentially and then go after them. I think it's a really interesting change.
Yeah, I mean, I think, am I the only one that's super excited for the, I just want to...
I'm always on the receiving end. I don't play Sombra, so I'm like obviously less excited for what I see.
Now with this new Rework, maybe we can be the Sombra player.
Oh, you want to be the Sombra to my Ryan?
Well, I mean, yeah, Geoff, you talked actually a lot about the new Rework and everything, but I want you to, I want to ask you a little bit deeper. What direction are you trying to go with Sombra, just as a hero?
Right. So, I mean, I've always liked that she's sort of a little more of a setup hero. Like, obviously, she still requires a decent amount of aim skill, but she's not, the Widow or anything of the group. So I like that she's got this hybrid sort of very situational awareness and timing game going on, but also, obviously being decent at aiming helps a lot with her. So I wanted to keep a lot of that intact, and so I think a lot of what we see here is sort of deepening that in a way because, when we've been playtesting it, for example, there's a lot of like kind of mind gaming things you can do because the hack cooldown's really low now. So like I said before, when you hack somebody, you're kind of calling them out, like I'm about to open on this guy and do much damage. But like you can hack somebody and then you're still stealth, run to a completely different area, hack somebody else, and the whole team like rotated to help that person, but then you hack somebody else and go after them instead. And like it's so Sombra to be able to just like mess with people like that. It's so great. It's super fun. Plus the EMP just got so much more powerful.
Right.
And I did want to talk to that because the element of the hack that makes it powerful now is the extra damage increase. And as a support player who's been hacked also a lot in my life, the fear of that damage is going to go up even higher, especially with that EMP. Is that a big like tuning moment of like how much damage can this Sombra really put out? Because she's going more to, as you said, DPS than a crowd control hero, and in this sort of rework. Yeah,
definitely. It's actually really interesting to play with because it doesn't remove shields anymore like it used to. So actually, it does less damage to Zarya and Zenyatta, any hero that has a ton of extra shields, because it doesn't strip them anymore. So, I mean, Zenyatta players are probably saying this is like a buff, actually. But against everybody else, it's just way better, especially against tanks. It's 40% of their current health, so it's different than Sigma's ultimate, where it's their max health. So it can't actually kill anybody. But the earlier you do it in the fight, has a big setup move. It does so much more damage and weakens everybody. It's this great sort of alley-oop. Obviously into a grab or something is great. Like, well, everything into a grab is great, so that doesn't really change. But